There. Councillor Burns, number 2 forms. Yeah.
You know, I'll have to leave them for 30 seconds. I'm not doing the wrong earphones.
Okay.
Okay.
All you're going to be listening to protocol, councillor. So, so as ever, we'll run through the protocol at the start of every meeting. All visitors must fill in the visit book, Kiln Craig reception. This includes council staff and other buildings. There's no planned fire evacuation drill or alarm test today. Fire alarm is activated during your visit. You must exit the building immediately. Council officers will direct you to the nearest fire exit and will escort visitors to the building fire assembly point beside the third man at the top of Parliament Walk. Kiln Craig staff should report to the floor's assembly point. You should remain at the assembly point until directed to reoccupy the building and only re-enter once the fire marshal is advised it's safe to do so. Please do not attempt to leave the site in a vehicle until it's clear to do so by the fire marshal to ensure access routes are kept clear for emergency vehicles. Please note that this is a public meeting and that members of the public may be in attendance. The meeting will be recorded by the clerk and published online for public viewing. The taking of photographs, including screenshots, audio or video recordings, are not permitted during meetings unless with express permission of the convener. The members attending virtually activate their cameras and, if possible, to enable you to join by video. All attendees mute their microphones when not speaking. Please do not come in during items unless invited to do so. If members attending virtually wish to speak on any point, please indicate by clicking on the raise your hand button. Members in the chamber should also raise their hands and I'll bring you in at the appropriate time. Members have not been able to access all papers for the meeting. Could you please indicate now? Okay, today we will hear each of the items set out on the agenda and I'll invite the officer to present the paper. Members will have the opportunity to ask questions before we then proceed to debate and decision. Thank you. Before we move on to the listed agenda this morning, we'll all be aware of our incredibly difficult and challenging circumstances going on at the moment for people who are housed or warehoused in Benbrook, Pew and Coles not situation. The Chief Executive has asked for the opportunity to give Council a quick update before we move on to the formal agenda, which I've agreed to think is very helpful given the circumstances that we're dealing with.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning, councillors. I wanted to provide a brief update on the significant incident impacting Benbrook View residents since Monday evening. This is intended to supplement the briefings that are already being provided to members, but also to bring matters a little more up to date. So, as of this morning, the incident continues to be managed in the response phase of our civil contingencies duties. The incident requires a multi-agency response, and the Forth Valley Resilience Partnership has been coordinating the multi-agency response, chaired by Police Scotland. A further meeting of the Forth Valley LRP is planned for this morning, and it will continue to meet as is required. The Mining Remediation Authority have control of the site of the incident and are continuing their investigations to identify the cause of the ground movement. Our officers continue to consult with MRA several times a day on the progress being made. Depending on the outcome of both the MRA's investigations and the LRP meeting today and in future, next steps and leadership of these activities into the future will be determined. Until then, we will continue to meet our responsibilities under the civil contingencies legislation, which we've been doing. So, for instance, by providing assistance with temporary accommodation and access to advice services for residents. This afternoon, I've arranged for a briefing for affected residents that will be attended by some of the key multi-agency partners, specifically the Mining Remediation Authority, utilities representatives and the council. I would like to invite the council leader, spokesperson and ward members for the affected ward to attend. Member briefings will continue to be separately provided by officers for members' information. However, this briefing aims to provide the opportunity for partners to explain their role and provide an update on activity, but most importantly, provide the opportunity for residents to ask questions. I wanted to alert you to the fact that an invitation will be issued to those invited elected members following this meeting of council. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Nicky. And it's a useful update for us given what's going on in that area at the moment. I think any of you elected members still have questions. We've got a very useful communication process going on at the moment. Chris has given us an update in terms of what's going on, step the steps. I think if there's anything you still need to ask around that, I think that use that avenue to do that. I'm sure we'll get the updates through then. Okay, thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest from MD in terms of the items listed on this morning's agenda? No. Okay. So item 3 is the minutes of meetings from Clackmannanshire Council from Thursday the 19th of March and Thursday the 20th of April. Again, I'll go through them by page number. Could you just indicate if there's an issue in any of those pages as we go through them? So page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14. And for the meeting on Thursday, 23rd of April, page 15 and page 60. Happy to approve those minutes. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is item 4, which is a British Sign Language Plan for 2026-2032. Judy's going to take us through that.
Morning, councillors. I'm here to present the British Sign Language Plan for 2026-2032, and I just want to bring councillors' attention that we are joined this morning by 2 British Sign Language interpreters this morning who are in the chambers, Mark and Uni, who are sitting over at the table. So the report seeks the approval of the Clackmannanshire Council British Sign Language Plan for 2026-2032, recognising that British Sign Language is an important and distinct language essential for participation in community life for deaf and deafblind residents in Clackmannanshire. The plan, which fulfils their statutory duties under the British Sign Language Scotland Act 2015 and aligns with national priorities, builds on progress since 2018, including improved interpretation services, increased staff awareness, and the introduction of British Sign Language in our schools. Consultation with British Sign Language users and stakeholders in the development of the plan highlighted that whilst services are generally accessible, further improvements are needed, particularly in providing information in accessible formats, increasing staff training and strengthening support across employment, health and early years services. The new plan sets out a practical, phased approach to improving access, inclusion and outcomes for British Sign Language users over the next 6 years. The plan focuses on removing barriers and improving outcomes through 7 strategic priorities, which include enhancing accessibility of information and services, supporting children and families, improving employability and health outcomes, promoting British Sign Language culture, strengthening data and insight, and increasing democratic participation. Delivery of the plan will be embedded within existing services and resources, prioritising practical and deliverable improvements for British Sign Language users aligned with national policy and with an emphasis on partnership working and continuous improvement. Subject to approval today, the plan will be published on the Council's website and a copy provided to Scottish Government. I'm happy to take any questions on the plan, and I'm also joined by my colleagues Aidan Fleming and Leslie Bailey, who can help answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Sheree, and welcome to Mark and to Uni to the meeting this morning. Do you have any questions for Sheree? Councillor Rennie?
Yeah, I think this is an excellent plan, Cherie. Thanks very much. I was just wondering, I'm conscious I did sign language training years ago and I said to Kath, I've forgotten everything. And I just wondered if there'd be an opportunity for elected members, even maybe an external agency or somebody coming in to offer some training for us.
So thank you for the question. We're actually currently exploring the possibility of sign language awareness and early British Sign Language lessons for front-facing staff, such as reception staff. So that's definitely something to include you in if you're interested.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn.
Thanks, Convener. Page 24, we have adopted British Sign Language as a language as part of 1+2 languages in select schools. What exactly does that mean?
Has it?
Right.
Sorry, Councillor, please can you repeat the question?
Certainly. On page 24, it says, we have adopted British Sign Language as a language as part of 1+2 languages in selected schools. What are the implications of that?
Okay, we've got a specialist resource that actually is based out of Telkutry Primary School that services the schools where they need to most. We've got some learners that benefit from that and their families. It's not just seen as a sort of thing that's happened in school. It's much more a wraparound support that we've invested in recent years. So what that looks like is just making sure that our schools are really accessible for all our learners where possible and using the expertise across the authority.
It was the 1+2 languages. Maybe I'm distant from education these days, or like some years, certainly. I just wonder exactly what that is.
Make sure that our learners in school don't just learn English, they have access to other languages, French, Spanish, and that's the plus bit. So it might be Gaelic, it might be the focus, but it's just making sure there's a range of options where that specialism is available, and we're including that approach that you've just heard for in that.
That's fine, thanks. Just while you're there, and page, no, it's not page anything. The resource implications of this exercise are primarily staff training, interpretation, website, stuff like that. Any of that unbudgeted?
The resource that we've actually got in place is a sort of best value approach that we can have. We don't have much need right across all our schools for this specific inner schools, but there is a need. So having that sort of centralised tele primary school expertise reaching out is the most efficient model that we've got. Does that answer the question?
Well, no, I was asking if it was unbudgeted.
I think the report and the plan says that the implementation of the actions will be done within current council budget.
Fine. Thank you.
So, thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Cherie. Councillor Forson to move the paper.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Before I move the paper, as leader of the council, I just want to express my sincere sympathy to the residents of Buck and Kilsnoton. I think we all recognise that this has been a extremely distressing and uncertain time, and hopefully the meeting this afternoon, whilst I won't be able to provide final answers, will be able to provide some assurance and clarity to residents. So I'll move on. I'm pleased to move the recommendations set out in the report, which confirms Clackmannanshire Council's British Sign Language Plan for 2026 to 2032. I think this is an important piece of work, not simply because it fulfils our duties under the ESL Scotland Act, but because it reflects the kind of council we aspire to be: inclusive, accessible and responsive to the needs of all our residents. Language is more than just communication. It's about dignity, participation, identity and belonging. And for members of the deaf community who use British Sign Language, accessibility is not an optional extra. It's very fundamental to equal access to public life and to public services. So this plan builds on the progress made since our first BSL plan in 2018, but I think it is pragmatic and it recognises that there is more to do. So I want to thank everyone who contributed to the consultation process, and those were local BSL users, partner organisations, the British Deaf Association, council officers and community stakeholders. I think it's fair to say their feedback has helped shape a plan grounded in lived experience and practical improvement. What's particularly encouraging is that the themes emerging from the consultation are clear and constructive. People told us they want information that's easier to understand. They want greater awareness amongst their staff. They want interpreting support that is reliable and accessible. And they want services that genuinely include deaf people in decision making, rather than expecting them to adapt to systems that were not designed with them in mind. And I think this plan does respond directly to those concerns. So over the next 6 years, we are committing ourselves to improving accessibility across council communications and services, strengthening awareness and training amongst staff, promoting BSL within education and community settings, and working more closely with partners to ensure that deaf residents can participate fully in civic and community life. I think it's important to note that the principles in this plan connect directly to our wider commitments around equality, community empowerment, health and wellbeing, and tackling barriers to opportunity. I am particularly pleased to see the emphasis on children and young people, democratic participation, and celebrating the BSL culture itself, because inclusion is not only about removing barriers, but also recognising and valuing people's identity and contribution. Of course, adopting a plan is only beginning. The real test will be how effectively we deliver it, and that will require continued partnership working, accountability, and ongoing dialogue with the deaf community. But I think today gives us an opportunity to reaffirm something important, that everyone in Clackmannanshire should be able to access services, information, and democratic life in ways that work for them and respect their communication needs. So I'm therefore asking members to support the recommendations before us today.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, the second.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I'm happy to second this report and support the approval of the British Sign Language Plan. This is an important piece of work which recognises that for many people, BSL is their first preferred language and that accessibility and inclusion matter in every part of public life. I welcome the work that has gone into engaging with BSL users, partner organisations and local people to better understand the barriers they can face when accessing services. The actions in the plan are practical and achievable, focusing on improving access to information, raising staff awareness, strengthening partnership working and making services more inclusive. I also think it's important to recognise the progress already made since the first plan in 2018, and this updated plan gives us a clear way to continue building on that work. I'm pleased to second the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The paper is now open for debate. Does anybody wish to debate? Councillor Coyne?
Thanks, Convener. I mean, I know personally and vicariously that being deaf is very, very isolating. If you're not in the conversation, you're not in the room. And this is an extremely important way of breaking down a very significant barrier for a lot of people. And I'm really happy this is coming forward and therefore supporting it.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett?
Thanks, Chair. As everyone knows, when we've not got these on, I can't hear a thing. So it is as was said, it's very isolating, and trying to actually get in touch with people who are very softly spoken. This is a fantastic way of actually getting things forward for all people who are profoundly deaf, but also for people who are not quite profoundly deaf but need the access to extras for that. So I'm thankful for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other contributions? Councillor Forson, do you want an opportunity to sum up? No. Okay, so the paper asks us to note steps taken to develop the new British Sign Language and to approve the draft British Sign Language Plan for 2026 to 2032. Are we happy to approve? Okay. Thank you. And thank you to Mark and Uni for your involvement. Item 5 is the future update, target operating model update, and Nicky's going to take us through that. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. So this paper provides council with the latest update on progress with the implementation of the council's Be the Future target operating model. Paper explicitly focuses on the progress made since February with the implementation of the immediate state changes agreed by council. The key headlines are that the 2 new portfolios and corporate services function have been established and the 2 directors and deputy chief executive have been appointed. 3 of the 4 heads of service have been appointed and recruitment for the 4th post will conclude early next week following a full external recruitment campaign. This progress has all been made within the timescales previously indicated to council. Once the final head of service is appointed, key priorities are to design and agree the new outcomes-focused portfolios, to put in place a robust organisational design development programme and resourcing, design and implement appropriate management roles. So you'll recall our previous conversation primarily focused on the next tiers beneath the ones that have just been appointed. So that would be senior managers, team leaders and supervisors in the first instance. Also to put in place full consultation engagement mechanisms alongside the next phase of the work for both staff and trade union representatives. And this will be underpinned by a clear communication strategy and approaches. Excuse me. In parallel, work has also commenced to transform the council's project management framework, building on the One Plan, One Report foundations to develop a coherent, outcomes-focused, golden thread that runs through the council's monitoring and reporting approaches. It's anticipated that the design and development of these approaches will continue during the remainder of this year. I'm happy to take any questions on the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. Do you have any questions for Nikki in the report? Councillor Quinn.
Never stop for a question. Nikki, on 3.13, you mentioned the saving assumptions there. Is that a shift at all from earlier versions?
No, that's the same range that we previously included in the paper to council. The issue being that until the final appointments are made, I can't calculate exactly what the impact is and where the outcome falls within that range.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Martin.
Nikki, on page 43, 3.15, clear plans will be in place to consult, engage and support staff impacted by the change. Can you tell us a wee bit more about that?
Certainly, councillor. So you'll remember we've talked before about putting in place a full programme managed approach for the change so that it's properly supported and rolled out. That would include proper communications and engagement strategy. So that will make sure that anybody affected or who has an interest in the changes will be either consulted and or engaged as appropriately through those mechanisms. That work's actually already started on the basis that we've just been through the first tier of appointments. So those members of staff that were affected by those changes were engaged throughout that process, as were the trade unions who were also briefed on all of the design and implementation work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, Councillor Forson to move the paper.
Thanks, convener. I'm pleased to propose this update report on the Be the Future target operating model and progress being made in delivering the next stage of transformation within Clackmannanshire Council. This report marks an important milestone in what is a significant programme of organisational change, one designed to ensure that this council remains sustainable, responsive and focused on delivering best outcomes for the people of Clackmannanshire. As members know, local government continues to face substantial pressures, increasing demand, financial constraints, workforce challenges and rising expectations from our communities. So standing still is not an option. The Be the Future programme is therefore about more than restructuring. It's about modernising how we work, strengthening collaboration and creating an organisation that is better equipped for the future. This paper confirms the immediate state of the target operating model has now been substantially implemented. The new leadership arrangements approved previously by Council are now largely in place, including the establishment of the new portfolios for wellbeing and for place and economy alongside the new corporate services function. I'd like to place on record my thanks to all officers involved in managing what has been a complex and demanding process. and particularly to staff across the organisation who continue to deliver services through a period of change and uncertainty. Importantly, this next phase is not simply about changing job titles or organisational charts. It is about creating stronger alignment across services around shared outcomes for our communities. The report makes clear that the future model will place greater emphasis on collaboration across directorates, on prevention and early intervention, and on outcomes-focused working. And I think we will all agree that those are the right priorities. I particularly welcome the commitment to developing a structured organisational change programme with clear engagement arrangements for staff and trade unions, because successful transformation cannot simply be done to people, it must be done with people. Culture matters, I think, just as much as structure. And if we are serious about becoming a more agile, joined-up organisation, then we must also create an environment where staff feel involved, supported and empowered through the transition. Members will also note that the report identifies the next key areas of work, including the development of the outcome-based portfolios, review and alignment of corporate services, redesign of management structures, and the development of new ways of working across the organisation. I think this is very ambitious work, but it is necessary work. And while transformation programmes are often discussed in organisational terms, ultimately this is about improving outcomes for residents. It's about better integration of services, clearer accountability, and more effective partnership working, and ensuring that the limited resources we have are directed where they can have the greatest impact. It's also important to recognise that this will continue to evolve. The report itself acknowledges that this is part of a wider journey from the immediate state to a future operating model that will continue to adapt over time. That flexibility will be essential given the pace of change facing local government nationally. I believe this council has consistently shown a willingness to face challenges directly and to think differently about how we deliver for our communities. And I think the future programme reflects that ambition. There will undoubtedly be difficult decisions ahead, and there will be understandable concerns during periods of change. Doing nothing would carry far greater risks in the long-term resilience of the organisation and the services we provide. I therefore welcome the progress outlined in the report, commend officers for the work undertaken so far, and ask Council to note the update and support the continued implementation of the target operating model.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hamilton to second.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I'm pleased to second this report and note the progress that's been made so far with the target operating model. I think it's important that while this is obviously a big organising change, the focus is on trying to get services working better together, cutting down duplication and making sure we're organised around outcomes for residents rather than just staying in separate silos. I also welcome the fact the report recognises this has to be phased properly, with staff and trade unions kept involved throughout the process. Changes like this only work if people feel informed and supported through it. There's obviously still a lot of work ahead, but it's good to see the structure now taking shape and the next steps being focused on collaboration, shared priorities and improving how the council delivers services. I'm pleased to second the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The paper's open for debate. Anybody wish to debate the paper? No. Okay, so the paper is really for us to note items 2.1 down to 2.5, and we're happy to note people. Okay. So item 6 is the budget strategy and medium-term financial strategy update. Wendy's going to take us through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, Council. This report provides members with an update on the Council's medium-term financial strategy following the 26-27 budget and sets out the proposed approach and timetable for developing the 27-28 budget. Council continues to face a highly challenging financial environment with an effective and indicative funding gap of 10.1 million in 27-28, rising to 24.5 million over the medium term, reflecting ongoing service demand, inflationary pressures and limited financial flexibility. The report highlights the reliance on one-off measures to balance the current budget and the resulting impact on the future financial sustainability, reinforcing the need for sustained transformation income generation and expenditure reduction in line with the approach set out in the medium-term financial strategy. Since the last update, key developments include the establishment of the Capital Programme Board to strengthen capital governance, progress in implementing the target operating model, which we've just had a report on, and the continued delivery of the Council's transformation programme. The report also sets out the structured budget development process for 27-28, including early engagement through 3 planned tranches of budget challenge sessions, governance via the budget working group, and a clear timetable of milestones through to budget setting in February 27, as set out in Appendix 1. I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. Do you have any questions, Councillor Brennan?
I've got 3 questions, so apologies, I'll go through them one by one. The first one really is, obviously in recent audit scrutiny, we saw a positive financial position for last year. And I wondered if that had been taken into account in making the assessment of what the deficit will be moving forward.
Thank you. So when we prepared the budget for 26-27, we took into account the projected underspend within the 25-26 at that point in time. So that was used as part of the budget setting process, and we've used uncommitted reserves to balance the budget on that basis. When we get the final position for 25-26, we'll again feed that in and update our reserves position, so that can be used as information alongside process for setting the 27-28 budget.
Next question, I think I probably know the answer, but because we're still in a bit of state of flux, but have we taken into account the potential overspends in the health and social care partnership budget when coming to figures, or are we still waiting to see what that position is in the longer term?
Thank you. So as part of the 26-27 budget, Council agreed to earmark reserves for the 25-26 overspend up to a value of around 2.8 million. So within the 26-27 budget, there was no funding set aside to contribute to the health and social care partnership potential overspend. And that would be taken forward during the year when further information would be known about what the potential gap was and what the actual gap might be by the end of the year. So as the year progresses, what I would aim to do is update members with the position for the health and social care partnership, that overspend position, and how that would feature in our calculations to how we would set the budget for 27-28.
Final question. Obviously, we've had a lot of discussion about the target operating model, which is really positive, and hopefully that will make positive changes moving forward. So we're obviously projecting well into the future. Do you think the target operating model might potentially make a difference to those figures, or is that already incorporated into planning?
Thank you. So again, as part of the 26-27 budget, we had included a saving on the target operating model. And I think Nikki had alluded to that in our introduction. There was a range there, and that would be confirmed when the posts are appointed to. And going forward, we would hope that any savings as a result of that would be attributed again into the budget.
Thank you. Any other questions, Lindsay? No. Okay, thanks, Lindsay. Councillor Ross to move the paper.
Thanks, Convener. I'd like to move this report on the budget strategy and medium-term financial strategy update. I think it's really important at the outset to speak plainly about the context we are operating within. Like councils across Scotland, Clackmannanshire Council continues to face an extremely challenging financial environment, and it's important that we're clear about where these pressures are coming from. The council is not immune from the same rising costs that households and businesses across the country have experienced over recent years. Inflation continues to impact across almost every area of our budget. Energy costs remain significantly higher than they were only a few years ago. The cost of delivering services, maintaining buildings, purchasing supplies, and supporting our workforce have all increased substantially. And at the same time, demand for key frontline services continue to rise. In particular, we are seeing sustained pressure in areas such as social care, where we are providing essential support to some of the most vulnerable people in our communities, alongside increasing pressures within education and additional support needs. These aren't optional services, they're critical responsibilities that support people's well-being, dignity, safety and future opportunities. And it's important to recognise that this is not a challenge unique to Clackmannanshire, despite what some might seek to suggest. The same pressures are being experienced by local authorities across Scotland and indeed across the wider UK. Councils everywhere are grappling with rising demand, increasing costs and constrained public finances. The figures before us today reflect that reality clearly. The projected funding gap of just over £10 million next year, rising over the medium term, is serious and cannot be understated. But while the challenges are real, so too is the work being done to respond to them. So this report is not simply about identifying financial pressures, it's about demonstrating that this council is taking a structured, disciplined and forward-looking approach to financial sustainability. Over many years, Clackmannanshire Council has shown resilience, adaptability and strong financial stewardship. We have already delivered around £70 million of cumulative savings while continuing to protect essential frontline services and support our communities. This has not been easy, and it reflects the hard work of elected members, officers, staff and partners across the organisation. Importantly, this report also sets out how we continue to move from short-term management of pressures towards longer-term transformation. Central to that in our medium-term financial strategy is the Future programme. Through digital transformation, service redesign, improved partnership working, workforce planning and better use of assets and data, we are seeking not to simply reduce costs, but to build services that are sustainable, modern and better aligned with the needs of our communities. The approval earlier in the year of the target operating model and the previous paper marks significant steps in that journey. We now have a clearer organisational structure, strengthened leadership arrangements and a renewed focus on cross-directorate collaboration and outcome-based working, which gives us a stronger foundation for the years ahead. I also want to emphasise that this work is being approached responsibly and transparently. At a time when public finances are under pressure, people rightly expect honesty for leadership. Our residents understand that local government is operating in a difficult environment, but they also expect openness about the choices we face, the constraints we are working within, and the implications of the decisions we make. And that's why transparency must remain central to our approach. I think this report does not seek to minimise the scale of the challenge before us. Instead, it sets out clearly and openly so that elected members, staff, partners and the public can understand both the pressures we face and the actions we are taking in response. Equally important is ensuring that communities have a voice in shaping the future of services. The budget preparation process outlined in the report includes engagement with trade unions, cross-party working, public consultation and strengthened governance arrangements such as the new Capital Programme Board. And this is important because good financial decisions are rarely made behind closed doors. They require scrutiny, openness, engagement and collective responsibility. But being transparent does not necessarily make the decisions easier. But I think it does help build trust that decisions are being taken carefully, fairly and with the long-term interests of Clackmannanshire at heart. At the same time, we continue to make the case nationally for a fair recognition of the systematic and contextual challenges facing Clackmannanshire. Engagement with COSLA and the new Scottish Government will be ongoing and quite rightly so. I think none of us should pretend there are easy choices ahead because, quite frankly, there are not. But I do believe the Council has shown that it's prepared to confront difficult realities honestly, was continuing to plan ambitiously for the future. Our focus will remain on protecting essential services, supporting our communities, investing in transformation and ensuring long-term sustainability of the organisation. This will require continued discipline, innovation, partnership working and, quite honestly, political maturity from all of us in this chamber, which I think has been seen on a number of occasions. So today's report is both a recognition of challenge and a statement of intent that this council will continue to plan carefully, act responsibly and work collectively to ensure the best possible future for Clackmannanshire. And I would ask members to support the recommendations before us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lindsay to second.
Agreed with all that. But no, there's a few things just to draw on. As obviously that was a really comprehensive proposal and I think it lays out the balance and where we are at the moment in terms of we understand the difficulty. the difficulty that we have before us in terms of the financial challenges, the indicative gap of up to 10 million in this next financial year coming. But I think the paper and the way that it's been presented by Lindsay is really helpful in outlining the range of strategies that we have put in place. And I think there's a lot of positive to look at that in terms of not just the redesign and the work that's just been presented in the previous paper, the reorganisation to try and meet the demands that we're seeing increasing, particularly in the wellbeing portfolio, but the range of work around the collaborative models, working with our neighbouring authorities, and the partnership work that we're doing with other agencies that's bringing in a significant amount of money. And I know that's something I'm keen to see come forward in a future paper to outline. Yes, we're looking at savings and efficiencies at times, and it looks like the council is, really at the bare bones in terms of the staffing structures that we do have in place. But there's a huge amount of partnership work that we are doing, working with others to deliver or strengthen services that we already have. We know a lot about these, the transformation work, the family wellbeing partnership, Strive, and the way that we're connecting up other agencies and leading that process. But there is a lot of money that is flowing into the council as a result of these partnerships, and I'd be keen to make sure that we're highlighting that as we go forward in future papers as well. So welcome the medium term financial strategy. It paints a really difficult challenge, but hopefully it outlines the strategies that this council's trying to undertake to work through this. As Ellen's outlined as well, I think that just the last point is around, it's not just our council, and we can see that we work closely with other councils. There are councils in more challenging positions than us. There's councils with more money than us that haven't gone through the transformation that we've gone through, and the work that we've got done to get to this stage. So I think it's important just to stop and reflect on the fact that we've actually done a huge amount of work to get us to this stage. We've got the TOM in place, and we've got a range of partners in place that are going to hopefully support us deliver the outcomes that we need to deliver for our local people. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. The paper's now open for debate. Councillor Rennie?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with what Ellen said. We need to be politically mature when we're deciding budget processes. I think we are quite unique in Clackmannanshire in terms of the work that we do together, coming to the point of the budget rather than fighting it out in the chambers, and that's not always the case across other areas of Scotland. So I think that's really positive, not both for ourselves and also for the communities to understand that we're taking this very seriously and maturely as a council rather than making it about political arguments. So I think I'm really encouraged to see that that's going to continue moving forward, and I think particularly this year it will be essential.
Thank you. Any other contributions to the debate? Councillor Forson, no? Jim Summer? No. Okay. So the paper asks us to, well, there's a whole series of things from 212 to 219 that we're asked to note. What we're asked to do is to agree to the high-level budget timetable set out in Appendix A. We're happy to agree. Thank you. Item 7 is the scheme for the establishment of community councils. It's supported by Leslie. Thank you.
Morning, councillors. Unfortunately, you have me, Sharice, having to leave for the LRP. So thank you and good morning. The paper before you today relates to the scheme of the establishment of community councils and seeks council's approval to undertake a full review of the current scheme. By way of context, the scheme provides the governance framework for community councils, including matters such as boundaries, membership and election arrangements. The council is committed to keeping the scheme under review every 4 years. Whilst the current scheme remains sound, experience since the last review has identified an opportunity to introduce greater flexibility and practicality, particularly in how membership is maintained and how election processes operate. The paper today seeks agreement to propose to make a new scheme and to issue public notice of the council's intention to revoke the existing scheme and invite representations over a minimum 8-week consultation period. The review will follow a statutory process including 2 stages of public consultation with ongoing engagement with community councils and residents. A proposed timetable is set out in the report, commencing with today's decision and running through to mid-2027, with reports back to council at key stages. Members will note that there are currently provisions for 9 community councils, with 7 active, and this review will help ensure their ongoing relevance and effective governance. This work is also aligned with the Scottish Government's Democracy Matters reform agenda, supporting continued local representation and community participation. Subject to approval today, the next step will be to issue public notice and commence the first stage of consultation. Convener, members, ahead of the paper being formally moved, myself and predominantly Leslie Bailey, the Council's Strategy and Problems Advisor, who has had and continues to lead on this work, are happy to take any questions that members may have.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So paper is open to questions. I've got Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Convener. Morning, Chris. I know there are 2 areas that don't have community councils at the moment, and I know from certainly my ward, there was a couple of the community councils who struggled to maintain their positions. Is this predominantly around about making sure that communities find it easier to have councils and easier to make sure that they are consistently in place?
Good morning. Yes, that's correct. The scheme for the establishment of community councils is effectively an enabling document. It is meant to reflect what the people of the county feel will work for them in terms of community councils. So, for example, I'm not saying this is the case, but for example, if those community councils failed to form at the last election because they felt they were being asked to form a community council for a community that wasn't natural, this is an opportunity to change, for the people to ask us to change the boundary, to make it a more obvious boundary. I'm not sure if that is the case in these ones, but I'm just using that for an example.
Thanks, Leslie. And just so I have attended 2 community council meetings this week, and both were very interested in this, as you can imagine. Can we just make sure that they are, as well as the kind of wider public, that the community councils are kind of engaged with this all the way through? I believe there's a GICCF in a couple of weeks' time. I don't know if it's on the agenda there at all to pick up, but yeah, because as I say, the 2 that I attended were very interested in this and had a few questions about it, but were largely supportive of what was coming forward.
Yes, that's very good to know that they're very interested. And yes, I can confirm that I have been in dialogue with the community councils through the Joint Community Council Forum already on this before we even went to council, to ask them if they felt there was a need for a review, because we don't need to review it if there's no need. So they are open to discuss changes to the governance, especially with regard to membership and maintaining numbers so that they can maintain community councils. And so, yes, it will be discussed, not just at the forthcoming Joint Community Council Forum, but at the next Joint Community Council Forums after that, until the process is complete.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Law to be followed by Councillor Rennie.
So everybody said Rennie, not Law, and I was like, I forgot about me again. Are we going to, and I know that some community councils have had issues in their membership in regards to unacceptable behaviour or bullying, and they found it really hard to know exactly what to do in regards to those situations, and may not have thought that some of the things that are in place are strong enough to deal with that. Is that going to be looked at as well and consulted on?
It can be, if that is the will of people to discuss that. We haven't looked at arrangements to help them deal with situations like you're thinking of in the past. We considered that it was perhaps best not to put policies such as dealing with behaviour into the scheme in case they need to be tweaked, so that they can be tweaked to suit either a community council, or in case they need to change over the course of time as we see whether or not they are workable. So currently we haven't put matters like that written them into the scheme for that reason. We can do it if it is felt through the process of consultation that it would be best to do that, but previously the decision was not to. However, that doesn't mean that we don't talk to community councils about how we can help them with difficulties that they're experiencing. That can always happen. It doesn't need to be in the scheme to be discussed. And in fact, following the previous discussion, we did help introduce policies and procedures to community councils who had asked for it. And these related to their own community council. They weren't something that was applied to the whole of Clackmannanshire. Some of the community councils didn't want to, so we respect that, and it only applies where community council has requested it.
Thank you, Councillor Derry.
So my first question is sort of related to what Fiona just said in terms of, we had some discussion around, are there standards for community councils the way there are for councillors? Because, I mean, I've actually seen other elected members being pretty much getting a really hard time at community council meetings before, and not in a nice way. And I just wondered if, you know, potentially, if there aren't standards of behaviour, maybe there should be, because we are bound by standards of behaviour, obviously not to attack people. So we're obviously going out as elected members to community councils, and we expect a bit of pushing back. I mean, that's part of the job, but sometimes it can be quite nasty. And I think, you know, some kind of national standard, I think, is there one, and should there be?
There's a voluntary one. They have a code of conduct available to them, a model code of conduct. But we don't enforce it because we don't feel that the Clackmannanshire Council is an enforcing body for community council behaviour. But most of them have adopted a code of conduct. Whether or not they adhere to it within their own meetings, I'm not sure. I'm hearing that they don't, but they do have one, and it is quoted. Again, we haven't incorporated the code of conduct into the scheme because we feel it is a voluntary document, and because we are not in a position to enforce it at the moment. But if the consultation was to say that that is something that should change, then we would consider how we would incorporate that. It would involve quite a complicated discussion about, if it's in the scheme, how does the council enforce it when the council does not want to interfere in community council operations. It's really only their governance framework that we are responsible for.
Another question is the representation on community councils. And I know you mentioned that your preamble there, but certainly I've noted that there don't seem to be a lot of younger people that are involved in community councils, and I wondered if part of this consultation could involve engagement with schools and colleges to see what's stopping young people participating in their local areas. Great for local democracy to get people who are going to come next. So how we could tackle that?
Yes, certainly we can include the schools, let them know that this consultation is happening. It is the case that some community councils in Clackmannanshire have had participation from 16, 17-year-olds and even a little bit later. Unfortunately, it's not lack of interest, it's that their lives change and they generally move away. So it's not been easy to keep young people. The community councils can get them but not keep them. The community councils themselves do try very hard to recruit younger. Well, they try very hard to recruit people, and that includes younger people. Some of them do have representatives of the schools coming to the meetings, and they liaise directly with their school parent councils and with the academies. Some of them even have an education convener to try and keep the link with the young people. So that they do make efforts. It's not entirely about. I'm not entirely sure what the barriers are, but yes, thank you. We can include that in the consultation there.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Coyne?
Thanks, Convener. This is one of those do you agree questions coming up. I feel in a way that pump priming is probably necessary here in the process somewhere along the road, because if you just present the JCCF team saying, go away and have a think about this, I think you need to give them some ideas to sort of peg up to start the creative process going. You say you could consider doing this, this, and this, and this. and that starts this discussion. Whereas if you just give them a blank sheet of paper, I suspect you'll get a lot of blank sheets of paper back. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. I do agree we need to give them suggestions as to what might change, but they do make suggestions themselves on the basis of what they feel is making their operations difficult. We get feedback on that all the time, and on that basis we can have conversations about what they think the solution might be. But yes, it's a little bit risky to start off with a proposal because we don't want to make it seem that we've decided what needs to be done. But we do need to present something to say, here's something to work around. Yes, we do that. Yes, I agree.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No. Councillor Lee?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, Lee, I changed my mind. I was just wondering if there's any extra support for the areas that Councillor Harrison touched on earlier on, where there are currently no community councils. Obviously, in Tillabuddy, we've really struggled to get one going over a number of years, and it's harder to consult with a community if there's no community council to be that vehicle. So I was just wondering if there's any additional support for those areas that don't have one to perhaps get one established or re-established.
Yes, we do sympathise with those areas, and it is very sad when community councils fail to form. I don't know in terms of additional support. There's me, and I do keep in contact with the community representatives that I know in those areas and with the community groups that are there in the hope that they can spread the word. And there is a little bit of interest. You're probably aware that there is a little bit of interest. It's just that there needs to, because of the process they have to go through. I don't know if that's the barrier, in which case we can discuss that too. There's a process to go through, which may well be, it might mean that we need more people than are actually expressing an interest. So if you feel that is a barrier, it is something that we need to look at in the course of this process. This is the opportunity, yes.
Right. No, thanks, Leslie. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, thank you, Leslie and Chris. Councillor Balsillie to move the paper.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the paper in terms of consultation. It is, of course, a requirement upon our council to carry out this consultation on a regular basis, as has been said, every 4 years. I think the last time it was done was 2021 in response to the COVID issues that we were all facing and the need to engage community councils in digital technology. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind how important community councils are in terms of representing their community. They are independent, but we as a council have responsibility for overseeing their governance arrangements, and indeed they are a statutory consultee on issues like planning, etc. And certainly as a local elected member, I very much value my attendance at community councils in terms of picking up local issues and using them effectively as a sounding board. And yes, as Councillor Rennie, that they're not slow in coming forward very often and raising local issues, and it can be a challenge. The other key issue that community councils have, those that have been active and effective have got themselves involved in a whole lot of issues such as gala days, Christmas lights, etc., that are absolutely invaluable for the local community. There's no escaping the fact, though, that there have been discipline and governance issues that the community councils themselves are raised. And indeed, I think, personally, I think there could be a little bit more flexibility in terms of co-opting specialists onto community councils when they're dealing with particular issues. So hopefully all of these issues will potentially be raised by the community councils, because it is their opportunity to look at their own governance arrangements and put forward suggestions. So I'm
happy to move the paper, and I thank Jackie Daly actually for all the work she does with the community councils.
Leslie.
That's Freudian slip. Very much a Freudian slip. Thank you, Theo.
Councillor Harrison to second.
That's come as a bit of a surprise to me, thank you. Yeah, so on the hoof then, yeah, kind of following on from Councillor Balsillie there, I genuinely enjoy going along to the community council meetings. You do gather a whole load of information around about what's happening in the local area. They are a valuable source of information and volunteers for what goes on in the locales. And yeah, it is a bit disappointing when you see there's two areas that don't have community councils because they are so valuable. So anything that can be done to encourage those areas to get community councils, and anything that can be done to help community councils sustain themselves is definitely a good thing. So yeah, happy to second that.
Okay, thank you. The paper's open for debate. Does anybody wish to debate? Councillor Lenny?
Just to express as well, I think how important community councils are. I mean, I was involved in community councils when I moved into the area, and it got me to know everybody, and it's what made me decide to go ahead and seek election. So I know it should have put me off, but it was what made me think I want to kind of go forward. But I think they are essential for local democracy, but also for getting people in the community involved. And that's why I was really stressing the importance of getting the next generation. We've often got a lot of community councils who've been there for years and doing amazing work for the community, but they get tired, and there's a lot to be done in terms of, like you were saying, all the local galleries and everything. I think we need to get wider participation. So I hope that comes out of this consultation, but I just do really value any of the community councils that I've ever attended. They can be challenging sometimes, and I think that's why, for everybody's sake and for well-being, it's important to have some kind of structure in place where, you know, good behaviour's encouraged. But I think they're certainly essential for the community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Quinn?
Thank you. Yeah, having been formally involved in Alloa Community Council, I understand the importance. You know, they help raise a lot of important issues. A few of the things have been mentioned that community councils do, but obviously they've had, you know, public meetings when there's been issues with things like doctor surgeries. They run election hustings. We've done participatory budget events, all this kind of thing. They're really, really valuable to the community, and also, you know, they've got their finger on the pulse and help give it a voice and make sure that the issues that are in that community are heard and are brought up the food chain to the council and elsewhere where it was needed. So it is really disappointing that some areas don't have a community council. So I'm pleased to see this come forward. I'm hoping that, you know, we can make some changes as a result of this. It'll make it easier or encourage people to come along and to get those re-established, or to whether that's a boundary change or whatever we need to make sure that all the areas are included and have a community council that they can be involved in, or that they can, you know, go along to if they have issues, and that they can help represent them. I think that'll be good. So I'm pleased to see this, and I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Forson?
Yeah, you know, welcome the paper. As someone who regularly attends the local community council meetings, you know, I do realise the importance of them. In the last one I was at, I came away with about 8 members' inquiries, all of really, really important issues that they wanted to be raised. I think it's that conundrum, isn't it? It's how you get people involved, and it's probably a reflection of how society is at the moment. It's easier perhaps to go online to kind of raise an issue than to become actively involved. And I suppose as local councillors, we can encourage people to get involved where possible. I do think there's been important questions raised about, you know, kind of behaviour and codes of conduct, etc. Because people have the right to feel respected and, you know, protected if they do follow up and become involved in their community. I mean, I know some community councillors have personally received a lot of stick for what they do on a voluntary basis, and I think that's quite unfair. So hopefully we can get a scheme that's suitable and works for our communities, but also gives the flexibility to kind of deal with situations as they might arise. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other contributions? Councillor Basilio, do you need the opportunity to sum up?
No, thanks, Chair. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So the paper invites council to propose to make a new scheme for the establishment of community councils and to agree to give public notice of the council's intention to revoke the existing scheme to make a new scheme and to invite members of the public within a period of not less than 8 weeks from the date of the notice to submit representations on the proposed area composition of community councils in Clackmannanshire. We're happy to approve. Okay, thank you. Item 8 is the HR policies paper, and Ali's going to take us through this.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning, members of Council. The paper presented today asks Council to approve a number of HR and corporate services policies and procedures, these being the additional employment and extramural activities policy and procedure, the corporate security policy, the mental health, stress and wellbeing policy, and the Council's smoking policy. All the policies and procedures presented today have been reviewed as part of the rolling programme of updates to the Council's suite of HR, health and safety, OD, payroll and resilience policies and procedures. With regard to the additional employment and extramural activities policy and procedure, this recognises that employees may wish to take on additional employment or voluntary work, and this policy allows for that flexibility whilst maintaining our obligations in relation to relevant legislation. A policy group full agreement was reached on all aspects. Our corporate security policy, also presented today, ensures that all employees are fully aware of the security risks associated with their roles and provides clear guidance on the measures and procedures in place to maintain a safe and secure working environment for everyone. Although full agreement was reached at policy groups, comments were received by members via tripartite group, and as such, a separate protocol for elected members will be developed in conjunction with emergency resilience colleagues. I should also note that although colleagues in emergency resilience had intended to be present today to answer questions, they are unfortunately and understandably unable to attend due to ongoing incident response. The third policy presented today is the reviewed mental health, stress and wellbeing policy, which reaffirms the Council's commitment to ensuring the health and welfare of our employees. That policy group, full agreement was reached on all aspects. Lastly is the Council's smoking policy, which ensures that the Council meets its statutory obligations in complying with the Smoking Health and Social Care Scotland Act 2005 and the Prohibition of Smoking in Certain Premises Scotland Regulations 2006. Via policy group and the Executive Health and Safety Committee, full agreement on all aspects was reached. I am happy, alongside colleagues from our corporate services area, to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Ali. Do we have any questions? Councillor Rennie?
Thanks, Ali. I'm going back to front. I'll start with the mental wellbeing one. I'm so encouraged, just a preamble to start with, I'm so encouraged to see paragraph 5.5.3 in the employee assistance programme, something we've talked about a lot in terms of the level of support that we have provided and also the healthy working groups to be back in place again. I think that's really positive. I was just wondering with these really excellent services that are going to be in place, are we going to have like a kind of confidential review of how they're going and how they're being used? Like, I don't mean getting into details of cases, I just mean how many have used different arms, how they've been received. You know, usually when you're doing counselling, you would have a kind of evaluation. Will there be that kind of scheme in place?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. There are a range of measures undertaken by the health and safety team to look at things like uptake of the services that we provide. Those are reported through mechanisms like the Health and Safety Annual Report. I do take your point, though, that feedback is maybe a little bit more nuanced. Now, we do have supports, for example, with our wellbeing champions who will provide tailored support and guidance based on the range of issues that are brought to them. it's something that I can take away, and it's a really good suggestion, I think, to look at what evaluation methods are in place, and it's something that, yeah, I'll take that away from today and have a discussion with our health and safety manager on that.
Thanks very much. The other one was just in terms of I was really encouraged to hear that in terms of the safety one, that councillors are going to be looked at for that as well, because I was conscious our threat levels have become high, and certainly when I've been attending Operation Ford and barriers to elected office groups, some of the advice that we've been having is really not to attend surgeries and not to do home visits. Now that's obviously a huge part of our work, and last week I had a request to attend a home visit. So I just wondered if it would be considered. It's difficult for us if we go back to a constituent and say, I don't want to attend your home, it makes it look like we're accusing them of being unsafe. So I just wondered if on the back of that they'll be looking at in view of the way that the world's going, there'll be a policy potentially for safety of councillors that we can feed back to constituents rather than to make ourselves look like we're just not wanting to engage.
Thanks, councillor. I think it shows the benefit of our policy review process, that we have our policy group, but we also have our tripartite mechanism as well, because it was through tripartite that concerns of elected members were raised. Now, as part of that consultation process, instead of presenting you with kind of a fait accompli at council, we can take the nuance of those issues that have been raised and work with elected members to ensure that what measures we have in place are appropriate to ensure your ongoing safety. I have no doubt, speaking on behalf of absent colleagues today, that as part of developing that protocol, there will be further engagement with elected members to ensure that what's in place is suitable and relevant both to your needs, but also to the wider environment in which you're working in.
Thank you. Councillor Coyne.
My question has just been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, okay, thank you, Chris. Good, Ali. Councillor Dawson to move the
Thank you, Convener. I'm pleased to move the report before Council today on the suite of updated HR policies and procedures. I think at first glance, policies can sometimes appear procedural or administrative in nature, but the reality is that these documents say a great deal about the kind of organisation we want Clackmannanshire Council to be. They reflect our values as an employer and they reflect our responsibilities to our workforce. They also reflect our determination to provide safe, fair, modern and supportive working environments for everyone who delivers services on behalf of this council. The report is asking Council to approve 4 updated policies: the additional employment and extramural activities policy, the corporate security policy, the mental health, stress and wellbeing policy and the smoking policy. Importantly, as Ali has said, they've all been developed through partnership working with our trade union colleagues, management and HR through the policy review group process. That collaborative approach matters because it strengthens the policies themselves and helps ensure they're practical, proportionate and properly understood across the organisation. The additional employment and extramural activities policy recognises the changing nature of modern working life. Many employees now balance multiple responsibilities, voluntary commitments, or additional employment opportunities. This policy provides clarity while ensuring we continue to meet our obligations around working time regulations, employee wellbeing, and standards of conduct. The mental health, stress, and wellbeing policy is particularly important. Across local government and indeed across society, we've become much more aware of the pressures people face, both inside and outside the workplace. And this policy makes clear that mental health must be treated with the same seriousness as physical health. As an employer, we want staff to feel supported, valued and protected, because we know that when colleagues are supported properly, services are stronger, teams are stronger and outcomes for our communities are much better. The smoking policy updates and reinforces our legal responsibilities and our commitment to health and safety in the workplace. Again, this is about ensuring safe and healthy working environments for all employees and visitors. And I also want to spend a moment on the corporate security policy, because this is perhaps the most significant and far-reaching of the documents before us today. Sadly, we do operate in a world where councils and public sector staff increasingly face a range of security risks, whether this is from aggressive behaviour, threats, lone working situations, or wider national security concerns. The policy recognises that reality, whilst also striking an important balance between vigilance and maintaining public services. The policy sets out clear responsibilities for senior leadership, managers, premises duty holders, elected members and staff. After the tripartite meeting, had a meeting to discuss some of the concerns I had around about the elected members policy, and there's been a firm commitment to develop this moving forward, because I think it's recognised that elected members don't fall neatly into the kind of wider staff bracket. So I think importantly, following discussions at tripartite, amendments were made to remove specific wording relating to elected members, meetings and personal security, with that commitment to bring forward a more tailored protocol at a later stage. And I think, as Ali said, that really demonstrates the value of that forum. So none of these policies exist in isolation. Together, they help create a workplace culture where staff understand expectations clearly, where wellbeing is prioritised, where safety is taken seriously, and where partnership working remains central to how we operate as a council. I also note that equality impact assessments have been completed and they are attached for consideration, and no adverse impacts have been identified throughout that process. So, and I think we all know that good governance is not only about the big strategic decisions we take, it's also ensuring that the foundations of the organisation are strong, modern and fit for purpose. And these policies do help provide these foundations. I therefore move the recommendations as outlined in the report and commend the work of officers, HR colleagues, trade union representatives and everyone involved in bringing these policies forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hamilton, second.
Thanks, Convener. I'll formally second.
Thank you. The paper's open for debate. Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, following up with what the council leader said, I attended the executive health and safety meeting as my role as health and safety champion, and I was really heartened to see in a previous life I have been involved in policies like this, including writing or being part of a team that wrote them. So I was actually really heartened to see that the council are very, very, very similar to a major blue chip company who have got resources way in excess of what the council's health and safety and risk teams have got. So I think all of these policies are very welcome, they're very well written, and yeah, I just put it on record to commend the work that's been done on them all.
Thank you. Any other councillor?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of go back on what I said about the wellbeing policy and come back to that, because I think it's essential. So many places put employee assistance programs in place, but they do your online system where somebody goes to an online app and they just do their own thing, which I've always found really inappropriate. Got a range and suite of interventions that are shown in this policy, which I think is incredibly innovative and forward thinking, and also the workforce within the council in the longer term. So I just wanted to mention that again, because I think it's so important, and I think others should follow on with that approach.
Thank you. Any other contributions, Councillor Coyne?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to be very happy with 3.5 of these policies, but I thought I would take a defensive stance on the overreach, I thought, of the smoking policy in encompassing the vaping habit as well, because I thought this was a way for people to get away from smoking. I detest smoking in all its forms. I'm a reformed smoker, and probably the worst kind for that reason. But I was very defensive of the vaping argument. I thought it was a damn cheek to tell people that they couldn't vape. It's not smoking after all. But I thought I'd do a wee bit of research before I made my protestation, obviously, not obfuscations, but complaints, and discovered to my horror that vaping is just about as bad. And I had not realised that. So for all of those people out there who think that vaping is okay, it ain't. And therefore, for that reason, I withdraw internally my objection to it. But I support it fully. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other contributions to the debate? It's a possible one opportunity to sum up, so. Okay, so the paper asks us to note the attached report impact assessments and to agree policies and procedures that are here in the paper. I'll be happy to agree. Thank you.
Chair, before you move on to the exempt item, I was wondering if I could say a few words as Provost and Armed Forces champion. I was informed by the chair of the Royal British Legion that this morning is the funeral in Menstrie Parish Church of May Cameron, 100 years old, who is the last known resident who participated in the World War II. So I obviously can't attend that funeral, but I would ask that the minutes of our council paper reflect that fact and acknowledge our condolences to our family and thank her for her service. And indeed, just a gentle reminder that our own our Armed Forces Day is the 29th of May.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vasily. I appreciate this is something that's just coming to your notice at this time. I'm not aware of this information prior to the meeting starting. Assuming that we go through standing order, it's appropriate to record that somewhere, then we will. I'm not sure the answer to that at this stage. In fact, we've got one final item for the agenda today, item 9 of the paper. The proposal that be heard in private, given that it's an ongoing negotiation, the details of which shouldn't be in the public domain at this stage. Our councillor happy to agree to it being heard in private. Okay, thank you. We'll just take a couple of minutes to make sure that everybody's out of the room or offline that needs to be. Thanks.
Yeah, that's the teacher. Oh.
Okay, item 9 is keeping a promise, sale and leaseback of 8 Grant Street and Ella. Lorraine's going to take us through the papers. Thanks.
Thank you, Convener. Councillors,